Hi, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Cassie Barker from Environmental Defense. Senator Odette sends her regards and her regrets. She's not unable to join today. Today I'm joined by firefighters, Northern Indigenous health experts, and environmentalists to discuss the dangers of PFAS, or forever chemicals. PFAS don't break down, they accumulate in our bodies. For years, these stain-proof and waterproof forever chemicals have been used in clothing, cookware, diapers, cosmetics. We absorb them through our skin, ingest it in our water and food contact materials, and inhale it in dust from products in our house. PFAS are making people sick. Cancers, kidney disease, and immune system harms are a few of the many diseases associated with this class of chemicals. Northern Indigenous people are particularly impacted by PFAS, and Lucy Gray will discuss the urgent need to act on this class of chemicals. Forever chemicals have been used in firefighting gear and foams, meaning firefighters are also highly exposed. You'll hear from firefighter Quincy Emmons on how PFAS are impacting firefighters. PFAS are contaminating our water, air, and soils. Larissa Holman will talk about the harms to water and aquatic ecosystems. Canada needs to do more to protect us from these harms. Other governments are taking action and getting PFAS out of their products. Many brands are going PFAS-free, but PFAS lobbyists are showing callous disregard for our health by continuing to stand in the way of necessary regulations. There should be no place for forever chemicals in any of our futures. Scientists want this government to follow through on its science-based approach and list the entire class of chemicals as toxic and strengthen proposed regulations to ban PFAS in products. Dr. Elaine McDonald will tell us more about what this government can do to better protect our health and the environment. The longer we wait to phase out PFAS, the bigger this toxic legacy becomes. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Lucy Gray to discuss the impacts on Northern Indigenous people.
Nakut me Cassie. Lucy Gray from Kanyaksuk. I work as a public health Inuit research advisor for the Nunavik Regional Board of Health and Social Services. Research has shown that pregnant women in Nunavik are exposed and the exposure is increasing. Inuit children are born with PFAS already in their bodies, and they accumulate throughout their lifetime just by living in the Arctic and practicing their ancient lifestyle. While the PFAS industry does not provide any assurance to us, we are starting to find out some health concerns emerging from the research in Nunavik. The federal government has a fiduciary responsibility entrenched in the Constitution. It's duty-bound to protect the inherent rights and well-being of Inuit, and it has a responsibility to protect. And there is a strict standard of conduct in place. So the federal government needs to regulate PFAS because they do have a duty to protect and assist Inuit. So federal action is warranted. The onus is usually on the Inuit in Nunavik to prove that these chemicals have entered our homelands and our bodies. And research has proven that we have much higher levels than the Southern Canadian population. And as mentioned, our unborn children are born with PFAS already in their bodies. We don't see any benefits from these, but we are carrying a huge risk. Our health is being compromised, our traditional diet is being compromised, as well as our well-being and health. Our traditional diet is ancient. It's highly nutritious, it's cheaper than to import southern foods, and we have a right to practice food sovereignty, especially with the high food insecurity faced by the population in Nunavik, as well as for pregnant women, elders, and youth. And this shows in the high anemia present in our population. PFAS needs to be regulated for its entire class to protect our health and our source of food. Industry, as mentioned, has not proven to us that this is safe, but we are finding out the health risks. Every Canadian, including all Inuit, have a right to live in a toxic and hazardous chemical-free environment, and they have a right to eat their diet toxic-free, PFAS-free. So we haven't seen any benefits, we carry all the risk, and the industry should not have a free rein to dump these PFAS into the environment that make their way to the Arctic and stay there. So there are some health risks that we are concerned about. There's alternatives and substitutes available. The industry has to be held accountable, needs to be regulated. We should not be forced to make any risk-benefit analysis when it comes to eating our food. We are still saying to the population that despite the presence of PFAS, that to stop eating our traditional food is way more riskier, but we should not have to be forced to take that analysis. Our Aboriginal rights should never be compromised. We will never stop eating our traditional foods. We will never stop practicing our culture. Our way of life should not be compromised to benefit few corporations' quarterly reports. Processed food is difficult to transport, and it's very expensive. And as studies have also shown that an Inuk who practices their culture, eats their traditional diet, is much more healthier, physically, mentally, and socially, as well as spiritually. And we need to approach this as a collective. Inuit should never be treated like canaries in a mine, nor should they be treated like lab rats, and never as sacrificial lambs to benefit an industry or corporation. Every precautionary measure should be taken. Inuit have a right to eat their highly nutritious traditional foods free of PFAS, transported from faraway lands that may cause adverse health effects. We are finding out that the long-range environmental transport is compromising our health and our diet. The Arctic should not be treated as a chemical wastebasket, and the burden of proof should not be put on the Inuit shoulders, especially with the limited resources and other problems that we face. But ultimately, we pay the price and shouldn't have to. So in the past, we have experienced high PCBs, and experience has shown us that with the Stockholm Convention, when these chemicals are banned, they have decreased over time. We are seeing PFAS increasing, and if it is banned and regulated, we hope in the future that it decreases. PFAS as a class needs to be treated as a class, and we should not have to play with the health of Inuit and take the word of the industry, which is profit-driven. Inuit should never be forced to endure any health risks, nor should any Canadian. This is not only an issue for the Arctic inhabitants, nor is it only a firefighter issue. This is a concern for every Canadian as a global citizen. We all have an obligation to protect our homeland. Nakukmi, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Quincy Emmons, and I've been a volunteer firefighter for 27 years. And about 12 years ago, I started looking into the firefighting foams in the fire service. And the more I researched, the more I was concerned with the products being used. Limited information at that time, unfortunately, left many with assumptions that firefighting foams were safe. Buzzwords like biodegradable and green do not properly explain if a product is safe. Many things are biodegradable if you allow enough time for them to break down, and green is a color and not a confirmation that something is safe. PFAS and forever chemicals need to be banned as a class because, to be honest, the industry cannot help itself as there is a long history of substituting different toxic chemicals for another. Some firefighting foams are labeled as fluorine-free, can still contain PFAS, and a 2020 National Research Council of Canada report states toxicity concerns with the new fluorine-free foams compared to previous generations. If you need a reason to ban these chemicals as a class, simply ask a firefighter if they have lost a colleague, a friend, or even a family member to a firefighting-related cancer, and I am sure you'll be shocked at just how many have. Every day, brave men and women put their lives on the line to protect their community. And now is the time that we take a stand and protect them. Thank you.
PFAS contamination has emerged as a significant environmental and public health issue, given that these chemicals do not break down in the environment and can bioaccumulate in fish and wildlife. Ottawa Riverkeeper believes it is important to take immediate action to mitigate the potential long-term consequences that these persistent chemicals may have on aquatic ecosystems and the people who depend on them. Based on our experience of working within the complex multi-jurisdictional space and watershed of the Ottawa River, we believe that the federal government needs to ensure that adequate protections are put in place and ask that there is consideration on how to best do so. As a member of the International Waterkeeper Alliance, we see that the work being done in the U.S., including the recent introduction of the PFAS Accountability Act, is a positive step towards freshwater protection. Canada must adopt a proactive and precautionary approach to addressing PFAS as a class of chemicals which are toxic to the environment and whose bioaccumulation in the food chain directly impacts the health and survival of wildlife, compromising the biodiversity essential to the planet's ecological balance. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Elaine McDonald, and I am the Program Director for the Healthy Communities Program at EcoJustice Canada, Canada's largest environmental law charity, and we're working closely with Environmental Defence on the issues of regulating PFAS. I just have a few quick closing remarks. Although the market is already moving to safer substitution, we cannot rely on companies to make these changes voluntarily. Federal regulation is the only way to drive meaningful change. The government must not be fooled by industry lobbying. They are trying to narrow the definition of the PFAS class to avoid regulation and protect their financial interests. Pretending that some PFAS don't exist won't make them go away. The definition of PFAS is science-based, and over 200 of the world's leading scientists with expertise in PFAS chemistry has stated in a recent open letter. The longer we wait to act on PFAS, the bigger the toxic legacy will grow. We want this government to list the entire class of PFAS as toxic under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act and strengthen regulatory action to ban PFAS in products. Thank you very much.